worst period for me. How did it change?
Good afternoon, everybody. Just give me 2 seconds. Gotta pull up some really fancy schmancy stuff real quick. Ignore the tank top. Of course, obviously that's going to be here for very important reasons.
Is my audio good?
Audio is great.
Do you have any background noise?
No, I don't hear a thing.
Okay, great. That means I have some good earbuds.
Yeah.
Why you ain't got no clothes on? I'm sorry. Excuse me. Kidding. Ha, 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 ha.
Then how else are we supposed to get the people in, you know?
Oh, your milkshake is gonna bring the boys to the yard? Okay.
I mean, no. It's a potential. It's a potential.
All right, let's see. Okay.
Welcome everybody coming in. Happy New Year to everyone. Go ahead and tap the live, share the live, send out your daily heart meet, do all the good things as creator Erica Shantae would say. So that's not my thing. Shout out to Erica Shantae on that, saying all the good things. Do all those good things.
Oh, where did it go? Fixed it. Okay.
I'm gonna be sharing this out. Let's see if I can spam as many people as possible.
Yep. Get everybody and anybody that you can.
I know last night was a big night for a lot of people. Y'all better wake up. It's 2026. Time to get to work.
Yes. Start the afternoon. Start the year off right.
Yes. By reminding you about all the bad stuff that happened last year. There were some good things. Something happened in sports, right? Or something. I don't know.
I went overseas for a bit.
Wow.
There we go. Oh God. That's so funny. Once we get a couple more people in here, then we'll start this off right. I think the layout's great. Getting everybody to be shown.
Yes, knock them goals out, honey. Knock the goals out. Hit the likes.
Hit the Hit the follow if you aren't following yet. We are, yes, so Tired Lady, we are not only strategizing for today, but we're going to go over a recap as well. So let's start with the intro to everybody that is in here right now. It's welcome to Our Vote Counts, a nonpartisan movement uniting Americans from all walks of life to empower voters, support candidates of integrity, and ensure every voice is heard through education, outreach, accountability, and action. We are building a stronger democracy, one informed vote at a time, because remember, you should join us because your vote is your power. Because we're going to need it for 2026. I mean, what a year 2025 has been. It feels like, even though with a short amount of time, it has been a drag of a time for sure. Luckily, with the start of the new year, though, we have lots and lots of ground to cover. That is something that we'll go over in a moment when it comes to 2026. But first, let's start with this fire tornado that is 2025. And Ayana, what better way to start it off than with politics and with government at the very moment?
Why choose me for that? I don't
I mean,
understand. Is there some specific reason why you all would choose me to talk about that? Is it because Trump is my boss? So we're going to start this talking about Donald Trump, actually, because that's how the political year, politics and government year started with his inauguration on MLK Jr. Remembrance Day of all days. Donald Trump returned to office in January 2025. It was a cold day in hell. I mean, it was a cold day in Washington, D.C. that day when Donald Trump was sworn in. And immediately he got to work right after he cut a cake with a large sword. He got to work and he started issuing some executive orders, revoking some executive orders, and basically turning the United States upside down. So I guess you could say this is the upside down. We are in the upside down. So the biggest story wasn't his win, although that was a huge story. It was how fast he expanded executive authority. He essentially said, I'm going to come in here. And though he said it during his race, I'm going to be a president for everyone. He decided that he was going to be a president just for a few people. And those few people are the ones who abide by the Project 2025, thousands of pages manual. And he got right to work implementing all of the executive orders that they basically told him to implement. There were ones about, let's see, something about bathrooms. Certain people couldn't use certain bathrooms. Certain people couldn't be in certain sports. He wanted words removed from the vernacular of government writings. Female, woman, black. He wanted DEIA overturned, basically, in the federal government. You can't overturn something, but you can take away executive orders. And what he decided was that he was going to fire everyone who was involved with implementing DEIA programs in the government. So any DEIA specialists, any people who had that name in their title, he went through and said, fire all of these people. And then that trickled down to the state level. That trickled down to the corporate level. And suddenly corporations said, yeah, we're also going to get rid of DEIA. And then school systems said, we're also going to get rid of DEIA. And then Trump said, well, you know what? If you want federal funds, colleges, universities, public schools, you're also going to have to get rid of DEIA. And so a lot of them started to relent. A lot of them gave in. Some of them said, no, F you, we're not going to do this. The school system that my kids go to said, no, we're not going to do it. But a lot of school systems said, yes, we're going to do it because we want those federal funds. Also, he instituted DOGE, which was, I don't want to say it was a government agency because it was never officially declared a government agency by Congress. You know, Congress is the one that opens and closes federal offices. And Donald Trump said, we're just going to open this office and let all these people come into the federal government, and we're going to give them hard drives of information, all of the Americans' information, all of their social security numbers. And we're basically going to go through and see how many jobs we can cut from the federal service. And that's what they did. They closed a lot of agencies, a lot of important agencies such as USAID, the Department of Education, the National, what was it? The Institute of Oceanography, Weather, what is it? Remind me, NOAA, what is it? NOAH, I don't want to get it wrong. It's the National,
I think it was the NOAH, yeah.
NOAA, yeah, okay. So the weather people, the federal government weather people is what we'll call them. He got rid of that. But USAID and the US Department of Education were the biggest news stories for 2025 because the US Department of Education has been around since the 70s. It was established by Jimmy Carter. And it's much needed, very needed, especially the Civil Rights Division. Apparently right now, they have claims backed up, as high as a giraffe's what, but they don't have the employees to review the claims. And so people that were fired earlier this year because the institution was dismantled are now being called back. And the federal government has said, we're going to spin off different parts of the Department of Education to different parts of other agencies of the federal government. So we're going to put public education under the Department of Labor. We're going to put something else under the Department of Health and Human Services. We're going to put higher education spending under this, and then basically just spinning the work off to other places, but also not providing these other agencies with the money or the employees to handle the same amount of work in addition to all of the other work that they do. So Doge came in, made a big mess. Elon Musk and all of his new Doge people making hundreds of thousands of dollars to basically fire federal government employees. A lot of people were offered deferred resignations, voluntary resignations. Some people we know were laid off. A lot of people were laid off from the Veterans Administration, which is a big deal because the Veterans Administration is one of the largest serving federal government agencies in the country, along with the agency that I work for that will remain nameless. A lot of agencies were reorganized. And again, people were forced out of their jobs. And now we're seeing the fallout from it. I mean, they tell us that everything's going well. It's the don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain kind of thing. They tell us everything is going well. But behind the curtain is a different story, and I won't even get into that. But he also fired some inspectors generals, which was one of the most, in addition to the other mass firings, was another dangerous move. These people investigate corruption inside the government, if you don't know that. And when they're removed, accountability disappears. He also restructured, he also restructured the FDA. He got RFK Jr. appointed to be secretary of what is it? The CDC. Is he secretary of the CDC or is he secretary of Health and Human? No, he's not Health and Human Services, right?
No, I don't think so.
Health and Human Services, and RFK Jr. is the CDC, and the FDA is under the CDC.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Whatever the case, they work for the government and they are doing a poor job. A poor job. At the end of 2025, and the stories were just coming in of all of these food recalls after recalls after recalls on food products and medicine products, and because the inspectors have been fired. And you can't do inspections without inspectors. And if their particular component of an agency has been dismantled, then you can't go into these factories, you can't go into stores, you can't go into all of these other places, these meat plants, and do inspections if the people aren't available. So now we're seeing recalls of meats and medicines, and it's just a mess. It's a mess, y'all. It's a mess. Not to mention the biggest political quagmire is the immigration policy, right? This is something that we have been talking about for years. No immigration reform has been on the table since Donald Trump was sworn in, but he has, through executive orders and through basically putting some pretty rogue people in charge of the Department of Homeland Security, said this is what our new policy is going to be. It's not law. We're just going to put more people out on the streets to round more people up. We're going to do mass deportations of so-called criminals to third-party countries such as El Salvador. We've seen the deportations to CCOT. We've seen the story. If you haven't seen the 60-minute story about CCOT, please go find it, watch it. A lot of people are of the opinion that the United States essentially sent people to CCOT, to El Salvador, to be tortured, especially Venezuelans. But they've also sent people to countries in Africa and other parts of Central America, countries that they're not from, countries that they don't speak the language, and people they're suffering. Some of them are being returned to the U.S. because the courts have had to step in and say, you deported this person, they shouldn't have been deported. Like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, that was a huge fight last year. And finally, at the end of last year, a judge stepped in and said, stop trying to deport him, leave him alone. It's over, it's done. Go find something else to do, go find something safe to do. He's on TikTok. If you see him on TikTok, he's on TikTok. He looks happy. He looks happy and free, which is how it should be. But there are so many other hundreds of thousands of people who are either waiting in detention centers, ICE detention centers, which if you've seen the photos online, people are sleeping on the floors with those thin silver blankets, those emergency blankets. They don't have running water. They don't have access to toilets or food regularly. Their due process rights are being denied, and the government has said over and over, no, that's not true, that's not happening. But people are being denied opportunities to see a lawyer, to have a translator, to call their families, and they're just being swiftly ushered out of the country. And at the end of last year, the federal government said, hey, if you self-deport, we'll give you a couple $1,000s if you self-deport, which is insane because, again, where are you going? If you're, say you're a DACA recipient, they still haven't made a pathway to citizenship for you. The federal government is saying, hey, we want you guys to leave too. We want you out of here. You've never been anywhere else. You've never been to Mexico. You're going to go back to Mexico. You've never been to El Salvador, Venezuela. You've never been to Panama. They're like, hey, go back to Panama. You've never been. You might not even speak Spanish. But maybe that's where your people are from. And now you have to go back to Panama. Now you have to go back to Cuba. They're sending Cubans back. They're telling people, if you're in the United States and you're Cuban, you can't even go visit. Under Obama, you could go, they opened it up so people could go and at least visit for a little while. You can't even do that now. They're also revoking temporary protected status, which again, at the end of last year, like the last week of the year, a judge stepped in and said, hey, we're going to put a stop to the federal government ending temporary protected status for certain groups of people. If I had the list in front of me, I would be able to tell you. I can't remember what it is, but a lot of things happened in that last week of the year that kind of put a wrench in Donald Trump's plans. I learned this morning that he's going to stop pursuing sending federal troops to Chicago and Portland, because it's gone back and forth in the courts, and the courts have said, no, you can't do it. You're usurping the state's power. And Trump has still tried to push and push and push. And finally, they've just relented and said, we're going to stop. We're not going to do it. I don't even remember why they were trying to do this. It wasn't to support ICE. ICE seems to be doing just fine on its own. It's basically the law. I'll say that it's the law that you can't interfere with the work of federal enforcement agents. So if they go into a city, they go into a state, they go into a city to pick somebody up, there's nothing the local authorities can do about it. And so they've been doing this all over the country. And a lot of citizens have stepped up and said, hey, we're going to warn people when ICE is in a particular city. If you go on social media, you might see it. I've seen it in Cleveland. I'm in the Cleveland area. I've seen it in Columbus. I've seen it in Chicago. Chicago was a big there was a big story in Chicago this year about ICE raids. They propelled down from a helicopter into an apartment building, and they're doing all of this with no oversight. There's no oversight. That's one of the big political issues, is that there is no oversight. Congress, the House of Representatives, is the oversight for these agencies. And they had a hearing with Kristi Noem, and Kristi Noem was like, and then she got up and left. And she basically answered a lot of questions untruthfully. They said, have you been deporting American citizens? No, we haven't been deporting American citizens. And then the one congressman was like, well, here we have so-and-so who was deported to so-and-so, and he fought for the U.S. in the army, and he was a permanent resident, he was a citizen, and you deported him. And she was like, oh, well, I guess we'll just have to look into that, which is code for, I'm not, that has nothing to do with me. A lot of the administration secretaries have been before Congress and the Senate last year. Pam Bondi has been before Congress and the Senate. Kash Patel, RFK Jr. If you're paying attention and you watch C-SPAN like I do, you've seen all of these people go and testify under oath, and they basically look like a bunch of bumbling idiots. They don't know about their budgets. They don't know how the work is done. They don't know who's in charge of the work. They've gone through and they've fired so many people arbitrarily. It's a mess. It's a mess right now in government. If you're wondering what government is like, it is a mess. Okay. And I am not overstating. I am not overstating at all. It is a mess. One of the big government stories, one of the biggest stories, of course, was the federal government shutdown that lasted for 43 days. That concerned the fight over extending premium subsidies for the ACA. The Democrats under President Biden, had this plan in place where we would extend coverage for people who made too much money for Medicaid, but they also didn't make enough money to pay for a plan on the ACA exchange on their own. So they get essentially a tax discount, right? The money either goes to the insurance company or it goes to the person if they pay out of pocket. And the Republicans are like, yeah, now that Trump is president, we don't want that anymore. And Jazz is going to talk about this later under the big, beautiful bill. And so that was the fight. That was the Democrats wanted it extended for another 12 months, just another year. And the Republicans are like, no, we don't want it. We don't want to pay for this anymore. Donald Trump told him it was too much money. And January 1st, they're gone. Poof, gone. But the Democrats did not want to sign onto the spending bill until the Republicans agreed to extend the subsidies. And so because the Republicans weren't agreeing to that, they were like, okay, well, we'll agree to hold a vote on it. We'll talk about it after the government reopens. And the Democrats were like, no, because we tried that back in March and you guys fooled us. You didn't talk about it. You didn't hold a vote on it. And so people like me were working without pay for 43 days. And a lot of people were dealing with a lot of hardships during that time. And we didn't know if the government was going to reopen. I mean, I understood and I sympathized with people who were saying, hey, we need affordable health care. We absolutely do. We need affordable health care insurance, basically. And we need to keep the government shut down until the Republicans can agree to this. In my opinion, the Republicans were never going to agree to it. They don't like the socialist programs, and they consider the ACA to be a socialist program, a waste of government resources, even though their voters benefit greatly from these ACA plans and from the changes the ACA made to health insurance and healthcare options. And they're opposed to it, right? They're opposed to it. A couple of weeks ago, they held a vote on what they considered to be their plan for changes in the ACA coverage on these premium subsidies. Of course, that failed. It was more of in my opinion, it was more theater than anything else because they were never going to agree to extend these subsidies. Mike Johnson, who's the Speaker of the House, went on TV and he was like, oh, we tried. We tried. We're so sorry. We tried, but we couldn't come to an agreement. And he's doing his little hand. And so January 1st, a lot of people don't have health insurance. That's where it stands. January 1st, a lot of people don't have health insurance. The Supreme Court has had to step in so much in 2025. I don't think I've seen the Supreme Court work this hard before, ever, since I've been alive. They've had emergency orders about executive orders, such as when the SNAP, who gets SNAP money. Jazz is going to talk about that later. For the immigration, the ICE detentions, for the Trump wants to use an executive order to say that permanent residents who have children who are or undocumented people who have children born in the US. He wants to say that those people are not citizens under the Constitution. There's fight over gerrymandered maps. There's fights over just all kinds of things. Anytime Donald Trump issues an executive order, it can be challenged. Anytime a president issues an executive order, it can be challenged as constitutional, unconstitutional. But this time, every time he issues an executive order, it's something that is trying to change how either Congress is supposed to do its job. He's essentially trying to usurp Congress's power, and Congress has ceded to him their power of the purse, which is absolutely asinine, and it has been challenged in the courts, in the Supreme Court especially. And the Supreme Court has stepped in and said, you know what, just for now, just until the lower courts figure this out, we're going to allow the government to, for instance, say that trans people can't serve in the U.S. military. That was one of them. That was one of the executive orders. And they've said, okay, until the lower courts figure this out, we're going to lift the stay on the executive order. The lower courts have been in favor of basically on the side of the people. They've been on the right side of history. The Supreme Court is the one that's coming in and saying, hey, we're going to let the president do whatever he wants until you guys figure out the constitutionality of this. And then if it comes to the Supreme Court and we have to figure it out, we will, which is what they're going to be doing with the citizenship issue. So a lot of these executive orders have been going through. A lot of them have to do with federal service. They have changed how people are, number one, sworn in, number two, hired, number three, how people interact in the workplace. For instance, they've made it essentially okay for people to openly discuss their religious beliefs with other employees. Like if you want to have a conversation with somebody about something, you shouldn't need the president to step in and say it's okay for you to do that. But now particularly it's about, he said that Christians are being persecuted in federal service, which is an enormous lie. Oh, Jazz, where'd you go? But so now he's got these executive orders saying that people can openly discuss Christianity in the workplace, and they can have prayer meetings, and they can do this. And by the way, none of this stuff was ever unlawful. None of this was ever against anybody's policy. I mean, I pray in my office and nobody gives a damn. So we talk about, they have Christmas parties, they have Easter, whatever. You can decorate your office with Easter eggs. You can dress up as a big old giant Easter bunny and go to work if you want. He's essentially trying to blur the line between church and state. For some reason, they think that Christians are being persecuted in a nation they say is a Christian nation. I don't understand, but that's going on. Also, the United States turns 250 years old this year. And there are some changes you might see at the White House if you go and visit during one of the major events, like I think they're having a wrestling match or a boxing match or something. And they're going to have a baby New Year battle, a baby United States, a baby Uncle Sam or something. And if you go to the White House, you'll see part of it is missing. Why is it missing? Because someone decided to tear down the East Wing of the White House, which included the office of the First Lady. And it was a special place that held a lot of memories for a lot of people. And they're going to build a ballroom or a gas chamber. I don't know. If I were you, I would not. I wouldn't go there without protection, like a giant condom or something. People are upset because Trump did this without any kind of authorization. People have gone back and forth about whether the president needs authorization to remodel the White House. I mean, you don't, but you do, because it's a historical monument and there has to be research about whether this, this is appropriate, about whether it adds to, and then they covered the Jackie Kennedy Rose Garden in cement and added some very Miami 1940s casino type furniture to the patio. Apparently Melania Trump has difficulty walking in grass because she's a snake. I don't know. Also, if you go to the White House, you'll notice under the portraits of the different presidents on the wall, there's some writings about how horrible they all are, with the exception of one, Andrew Jackson. Apparently, there's nothing about Andrew Jackson. No, I'm kidding. Donald Trump has written loving language about himself and all of his accomplishments. And under a picture of an auto pen, apparently Joseph R. Biden is an auto pen. I don't know why. He wrote some stuff about how he's a horrible president. Obama's a horrible president. This is a horrible president. He's a horrible president. Da, 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 da. All of this and crazy, petty stuff. This is what is going on in government, right? This is what's going on in government. Everything has been made political, including Donald Trump vetoing a bipartisan clean water bill for the Colorado River, the area of the Colorado River, because the representative that put forth the bill voted to release the Epstein files. He was like, "No, they can't get clean water from the Colorado River." Which, if you look just into that issue, the basin, the Colorado River basin, there's some issues with the not just the cleanliness of the water, but the amount of water that, say, areas like California can use to fight their wildfires. Jazz is going to talk about that next. Where are you, Jazz? Jazz, where are you? But also, so that's what's going on in the government. A lot of things are happening. What's the other? The National Guard is being used in Washington, D.C. to so-called clamp down on violence in D.C. From what I could tell, a lot of the violence was in trash cans because all I saw was them picking up trash. But they're going around harassing the black youths, the Utes. Apparently, according to Janine Pirro, who's the federal judge over the D.C. Circuit Court, she's saying that they're not allowed to give harsh punishments to people who commit unalivings, for instance, which is bull. Everything you hear coming out of them is some cockamamie bull crap. But if you choose to believe it, that's up to you. That's totally up to you. If you think that crime in DC is down because of the presence of National Guard troops, then I urge you to remember what happened that one day, and I'm sure Finney is going to talk about this, that two National Guard troops were unalived in DC. If you think that's a coincidence, then I have an east wing of the White House to sell you. Also, National Guard troops being deployed all over the country to, again, I have no idea. I still don't know what this is about. Apparently, Dem-led cities are violent. They're havens of violence, and the National Guard's supposed to go in and make it better. I don't see how, because they're not law enforcement. They are not law enforcement. Law enforcement is supposed to do that. So all the money they're pouring into National Guard and ICE could actually go to helping local law enforcement. If you think it's such a problem, send the money. But you can't send the money because, again, Congress has the power of the purse. They would have to pass legislation to do that. And no, the president isn't going to Congress and saying, "Hey, Congress, woo, I need more money for this." He's just basically saying, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. And Congress is going, "I'm sorry, we're on vacation for 8 weeks." And they're on vacation again. They're on vacation again. They have had like 10 weeks of vacation this year so far. Probably more than that, 20 weeks. They were out of session more than they were in session. And when they were in session, they were apparently voting on bills that the president was not going to sign anyway. So that is what is going on in politics and government in the year 2025. I know I missed something. I'm sure I did. But let me tell you, a lot happened. A lot happened. So we're going to move on to Mr. Finney, who's going to talk about political violence in the United States in 2025. Take it
Absolutely.
away, Mr. Finney.
Yeah, absolutely, Ayana. Thank you so much for that beginning. And just like she said, if you do think that there are things that we've talked about or that we haven't talked about, please don't be afraid to let us know in the comments below. We'll be bringing people up too. If there's something that has happened within the year that you have not heard from us that you would like to talk about 2025. But speaking of, violent situations, let's talk about the political violence that has actually happened here in 2025 with one of the most unknown but known cases that has happened with Miss Melissa Hortman, a Minnesota state legislator that was unfortunately unalived with her husband and her dog by a masked man who did not agree with her politically and decided to take matters into his own hands and unfortunately unalive her. The situation happening in June, unfortunately on the 14th of June, uh, not a peep from the political right. Obviously, because she was a Democrat. That was one of the things that, has been shown because as that has happened in June, a man named CK, obviously giving initials on purpose, was unalived in September. This individual was um, unalived from who we did not know who was the individual at that point, was just some masked individual. Turns out it was a man named Tyler Robinson, who was a member of the family who was Republican voters, a white presenting individual who we also didn't know at the time until we found out later on by the FBI when they arrested him. Of course, that did not stop people like Nancy Mace and other members of the right who have talked about going after the Democrats for this kind of thing. One individual that has talked about it, Mr. Joey Minarino, says on X, quote, the Democrat Party must be classified as a domestic tea organization and their members leaders treated accordingly. Enough is enough, end quote. A Brian Eastwood, quote, Charlie getting unalived is the unalived heard around the country. I'm ready for civil war. You want to fight? You're going to get it. End quote. Other members, of course, people like Nancy Mace, Elon Musk, and even the own president calling for these sort of acts of violence. Let me know if you guys can hear this, but this is
To
from the
my
president.
fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger.
By the way, fruits in the chat, F1 in the chat. This is coming from the President of the United States from Truth Social. This is per ABC News. So if you're listening in, fruits in the chat. Let's can hear this now.
And the country that he loves so much, the United States of America. He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth. Charlie was also a man of deep, deep faith, and we take comfort in the knowledge that he is now at peace with God in heaven. Prayers are with his wife, Erica, the two young, beloved children, and his entire family who he loved more than anything in the world. We ask God to watch over them in this terrible hour of heartache and pain. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. On campuses nationwide, he championed his ideas with courage, logic, humor, and grace. It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst men.
We'll just end it right there because he continues to go down that route. But this is our president of the United States. This is not just some Joe Schmo on the side of the street. This is not just some person from the mayor's office. This is our actual president saying that it's the radical left, quote unquote. That same day, actually, when CK was unalive, there was a mass pupilling that was happening in a different location in a college. I believe it was the college in Utah or Colorado. that it happened, but it was a pro-Patsy supporter. That was the one that was unaliving individuals. Now, after this, of course, the following incidences occurred. Per the capitalbnews.org website here, the organization, on September 11th, which is funny enough, HBCU lockdowns lifted after a day of T threats. A lot of booming threats happened in multiple HBCUs across the country. That was something that was happening whilst this was going on. And of course, people like Nancy Mace were saying things like accountability must be happening from the Democrats. But when she found out that it was actually a Republican member of that did this, and a white tea individual who was a man, she decided to say thoughts and prayers to this individual, showing bias clearly, but also perfectly fine with just enhancing the rhetoric and not actually saying things like we need to bridge the gap. We need to stop this violence now before it continues to go downwards. Now, obviously, this was not the only individuals that were doing this with HCU boom boom threats. A man in Texas, in Abilene, Texas, was arrested by the police department for threatening to pew pew partisans or participants in the Pride Parade that was happening there. Quote, I say we lock and load and pray and pay them back for taking out CK. There's only 30 of them. We can send a clear message to the rest of them, end quote. This individual was arrested by the FBI after these blatant threats were announced and presented by the individual that this man texted. This is not the first time that this has happened. Of course, it won't be the last. Now, this, of course, shows political violence. Now, with the right specifically, this is not new. This has been happening countless years. In fact, decades has been coming from the political right. From per the Cato Institute and per the CSIS statistics here, they are showing nothing but attacks and plots of domestic teaism and even political violence from the political right. This is not something that is new to the United States. Now, of course, this goes into an extreme amount of data that we can show throughout the years, but we're just talking about 2025. In fact, this year alone, December 29th, before we even jumped into the new year, GOP lawmakers were begging for MAGA specifically to stop spreading conspiracy theories connecting to the unaliving of Melissa Hortman to the Minnesota fraud case. A lot of legislators, specifically Republican legislators, were telling MAGA supporters to stop making conspiracy theories about the unaliving of Melissa Hortman and comparing it to what was happening in Minnesota. Now, a lot of different things have also happened betwixt that time frame. We had a lot of mass pew-pewings here this year, places like in a churches, in mosques, and even in Mormon-like churches. We had an unaliving in Michigan that happened this year by a Trump supporter that was unaliving individuals that supported the Mormon church. And of course, when he crashed his truck into this church in Lansing, Michigan, it caught the church on fire. That's one of those individuals that has done this specific situation. And through the findings from the Rockefeller Institute and the Violence Prevention Project, majority of these mass pew-pewings and unalivings happen from white men. That is completely factual information. You can see it from all these different organizations and these different websites that this is what has transpired. Now, we are going to go a little bit into the crime data that Ayana was actually talking about too, because she's absolutely right. In DC, when the National Guard situation happened, as unfortunate it was, there was no reason for them to be there. Since 2024, and with this year being included, as an update from the DC crime data, it has actually shown violent crime has gone down 30% since last year, and property crime has gone down 16%. You can name a lot of these different attacks, essaying down 30%, assaults with DWs down 10%, robberies down 37%, homicides down 32% as well. It has been showing here that it has been decreasing ever since last year. But of course, the president wants to put in the National Guard to start to escalate tensions, and that is one of the reasons as to why, unfortunately, these National Guard members have been unalived. Is it a tragic event? Yes, I do hope a speedy recovery for the one that did survive. Unfortunately, with the other one, they did pass on. Rest in peace to that member of the National Guard. But if the president did not send them down there to begin with, then this never would have happened. as disastrous as that was. But we can only move forward from here. With speaking of disasters, though, because my portion of it is a little bit minuscule, we're going to talk about the natural disasters that have actually happened here within the United States, and I would love to bring Jazz to the floor for that.
All right, thank you for that, Finney. So, regarding the natural disasters that happened in 2025, if that kind of drifted your memory, I'm here to remind you there were significant events that happened last year in 2025. So, one in particular was the Southern California wildfires. So, specifically in Santa Ana, the winds and extreme drought caused the series of fires. And the overall impact of those fires, and also in the Los Angeles area, was about 18,000 structures that were destroyed and hundreds of lives were lost, and also people that were unaccounted for. So just the cost of that will lead up to about 112 billion altogether, and it's on track to be one of the biggest U.S. Events that impacted a major landmass in a heavily populated area such as the Southern California area. Also, we had some significant events such as hurricanes. We had a hurricane event that happened later on last year, coming from the Biden administration, going into the Trump administration, that affected a lot of coastal Carolina areas, which that brought up talks about FEMA and cuts of FEMA as well. And we could dive into talking about the changes of FEMA also, and to what Ayana talked about the NOAA. Also, the Texas floods. That was a significant event that happened in Texas, primarily about the girls that were at the Christian Camp Center. They were still unaccounted for, from what I understand from the last reporting, and also the camp counselors, which also brought up the talks about funding in that area on the political spectrum. The Biden administration in the last term did allocate certain funding in that area, which in turn did not update their weather systems. Instead, they allocated that funding towards increasing the pay of sheriffs and things that won't make a major impact. So that was something that definitely devastated the area. Also, in other urban areas in Texas are also talking about actually updating the infrastructure since that event happened with the Texas floods. We also had some major storm impacts in the Great Plains and in the Midwest, such as tornadoes in North Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, that happened over the past summer. So we also know that these significant events actually happened in places that were not really covered, but definitely affected a lot of people, specifically also in St. Louis as well. Let me not forget about St. Louis. There was a major a major tornado happened there as well. Also, when it comes to the economic and social crisis, we also understand that with the weather events that created a major shock in this country, we also understand that the economic portion is also important. So we had I guess you can call it like a stock market crash that happened for a couple of days when Trump implemented certain policies, specifically with the first round of tariffs. A lot of hedge funds and major companies had some very concerns about that early in April regarding that minor stock market crash. Also, we saw a lot of corporate companies filing a lot of bankruptcy filings over this past year. We're on track right now to surpass 700 major companies that have filed bankruptcy. We've also had tariffs that have affected companies, specifically like with the bourbon company Jim Beam. Jim Beam just announced that starting this year in 2026, they will halt production because of the tariff effect, with the demand of their Jim Beam product being low because other companies across the world are not purchasing their products. So that definitely has affected them with their cost. Also, when it comes to the public health challenges, I'm not sure if I can actually pronounce this word without it being TikTok friendly, but the EASLES, measles, I guess I can say that, the outbreak with that particular illness has surged in a lot of encapsulated communities that don't really believe in modern medicine, which has spread it across the major populations. And then also the expiration of the affordable tax credits. That has been an ongoing conversation in Congress regarding this. So I want to know in the chat. Let me know what are your thoughts about some of the things I have discussed this far, along with the major government shutdown and worker strains.
Jazz, you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. Also, when it comes to the government shutdown as well, that has taken effect when it comes to the labor workforce. Based off of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, over 200,000 people have left the government sector due to job cuts, and their notice of their job is no longer being a necessity. So that is just one of the things when it comes to just economic impacts that have really impacted this country as well. So I just want to know, just with Finney and Ayana, what are your thoughts thus far? Before I go on talking about the healthcare and taxes and the travel issues regarding this country. Anything you want to talk about regarding economic that I go
Listen,
over?
I think maybe I should start building a bunker in my house. Maybe convert my basement to an underground bunker because I'm scared. Like we didn't have we had the major floods. That was that came out of nowhere. I think fires in California people kind of predict, but the area that it was in was like wow. This is Southern California. We don't usually have wildfires down here. It's starting. All of these natural disasters are starting to hit places that we don't usually see and that don't have the infrastructure to withstand the destruction. And now that the federal government, Trump is saying, hey, if you need more FEMA dollars, we're not going to give it to you because I don't like this and I don't like that. Or we're just not spending money in that area. We're going to spend it on, say ICE. We're going to give ICE $100 million to go do some GI Joe campaign. How are we going to recover? How are we going to recover, y'all? I mean, our states, like I'm in Ohio, we can only spend so much on disaster recovery. We don't have a large economy like California has. How are we going to recover? I mean, we rely on the federal government so much to step in when the state can't step in. And then, Jazz, with disasters, there's insurance claims that you have to consider. Is your insurance company going to be like, yeah, we'll cover that, we'll cover that, we'll cover that? Or are they going to say, are they going to take the capitalist route and go, you know what? Yeah, you've been paying us hundreds of dollars every year, thousands of dollars every year. But yeah, that was an act of God, and we don't cover acts of God. You're going to have to ask Jesus to give you new siding on your house. Sorry. Like, what are we going to do? I'm genuine, and I'm not even playing. I am genuinely scared. Ohio gets more tornadoes now than it has ever. We're considered, last year and the year before, we were the tornado capital of the United States. We've never been that. If the president doesn't have our back, if the government doesn't have our back, what are we going to do?
Yes, and Finney, so to Ayana's point regarding just insurance altogether, like people across the country have been seeing insurance companies dropping their policies because they are looking at these specific heat mapped areas where it's prone to natural disasters. And a lot of these people that are getting their policies dropped, it's pretty much without notice. They're not giving them ample time to go find another policy. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think there should be more regulation to give customers more of a grace period to find another policy if that particular company does not want to cover them anymore?
Oh yeah, for sure. I absolutely think so. And on top of that as well, that there should be more access to getting better types of health coverage. Like having a public option will be something that could be very beneficial for people that don't want to opt into these companies that don't want to provide them with the health insurance that they need. Plus, on top of that as well, we have multiple hospital closures that have been happening for this entire year because they just can't get the funding because the government would much rather take that funding and just basically throw it to the wind or to throw it to people that they want to kind of buff up the pockets, especially with the triple B that you're going to be talking about soon. Like the fundings for these hospitals are just going to even more than diminish. And on top of that as well, because people like people on the right like to use the stock market and these different markets as kind of like a indicator of wealth and things of that nature. You see huge, spikes and declines showing a extremely risky and volatile stock market, which is extremely dangerous to be seeing, especially because they were saying that they're going to be seeing record profits that are going to be happening in things like Bitcoin and Ethereum and all that other stuff. But it has dropped down tremendously from what it used to be last year, which was around like 70,000. Now it's this year it's starting at 80,000, even though they've seen increases of 125,000 when it comes to their profits. Plus, a lot of those things have been happening because of the tariff policies that the president is putting in place. And just 2 hours ago, Newsweek just made a report that on Wednesday, Trump signed a presidential proclamation delaying the implementation of increased tariffs on specific imported goods for one whole year that were supposed to start this year and that were supposed to start today. It was supposed to be on upholstered furniture, kitchen cabinets, vanities. That was all going to be happening this year, and the prices were going to increase by 30%. And now he's making a delay on it for next year, and 50% for kitchen cabinets and vanities. Like the pricing was supposed to be increased by a tremendous amount, and it just shows that he's floundering. He's he's pulling back from the tariff policy that he made previously because he knows that his policies are garbage. And if it's going to look like the same thing when it comes to health insurance, I mean, you're kidding yourself. And we talked about it recently, Ayana, actually this before we even started the live, that a lot of these smaller tax incentives or taxes that are going to be placed upon this specific tax cycle, it's going to increase the amount of money that people are going to be paying into the government, which is because they're being put into a completely different tax bracket. This is dangerous. This is going to be putting a lot of low income houses or low income families or low income earners into a really bad position.
And can we talk about the tariff thing for a minute? Because recently, one of the largest furniture retailers in Ohio declared bankruptcy, right? And this was on the heels of other large retailers last year that declared bankruptcy. We had Joann Fabric. We had what was there was a restaurant. It wasn't Red Lobster. It wasn't Red Lobster. Was it? It wasn't Red. I
I
haven't been to Red Lobster in years, but there were so many
Yeah.
stores that, um, oh, Forever 21 went out of
Hmm.
business, and Claire's is going out of business, and a lot of them are blaming the tariffs for why they are having to file for bankruptcy. Even private equity isn't saving these places. They're saying that a lot of the costs of doing business in the United States just to import items is so much. And now here comes Donald Trump saying, well, we're going to delay implementing tariffs on kitchen cabinets. Who sells kitchen cabinets besides Home Depot and Lowe's?
Absolutely. And then to your point about like coffee has been increased with the tariff.
Yes. Yeah.
And then as of early this morning, I heard about the new implementation of tariffs when it comes to Italian pasta. Like how many Americans use pasta?
But there are so many
So
places that were like specialty shops and specialty stores that were importers of these goods that are going out of business, that now the only places left are these larger retailers like Target and Walmart and Home Depot or Aldi that are importing these goods, or that are working with just a few manufacturers. Like Kellogg is owned by some big conglomerate that owns Post
General
and that
Mills.
owns all of these other cereal companies and that probably owns like house cleaner brands and all of this. And so we have few retailers working with a few manufacturers, and at some point, he's going to be working to benefit just these handful of corporations, right? And there's not going to be, before the worry was that Walmart was going to knock out the mom and pop stores. Now the worry is that tariffs and the government are going to knock out the mom and pop stores. And that's what's happening. They're not just going after mom and pop, they're going after the medium-sized retailers now. And it just seems to me like there's a few places left where you can shop. There's a few places left that are genuinely owned by one owner. Like there's a restaurant conglomerate, that owns Burger King and McDonald's and Dairy Queen, and there's a retailer conglomerate that owns what's that little Victoria's Secret and this store and this store and this store, and it sounds like, I mean, it sounds like monopolies to me, right? That's what it sounds like to me. And these monopolies aren't being busted up. And now the president is saying, hey, well, you know what? We're going to pass a policy. I'm actually going to not implement the tariffs so that it can benefit these particular little groups of corporations that are owned by conglomerates that do what, you guys? Donate money to what? Elections.
And
Candidates who are
speaking,
running for office, and what do you call those people who harass you in Congress to put up a certain bill? Come
uh,
on, help
um,
Auntie out, Finney. Help Auntie out.
lobbyists, right?
Lobbyists.
Yep, yep.
Yes, lobbyists. There you go. There you go.
Well, speaking of money too, like when we're talking about the, finances and everything, I don't know if people remember the wonderfully terrible Doge that was created, the Department of what government efficiency? I don't know. Um, but Elon Musk was saying that this specific group is going to create about $2 trillion in revenue because they were going to basically cut out the wasteful spending, the fraud, and the abuse. He said that by March they'll be able to get at least $2 trillion back into the country, and as of December they've only reached $214 billion. And it's funny that this is happening too, because when looking at the debt clock, it used to actually show how much debt Doge was spending versus them cutting. But what's funny is that they're not up here anymore. I can't find the Doge clock. What I can see though is the U.S. national debt, which is at $38 trillion. We are still climbing that ladder ever more. And to be
I
quite honest
bet
with
you it's
you,
defense spending. I bet you it's defense spending.
most likely that's the case. Yeah, if you see a lot of these like different numbers that you see here, you know, it's absolutely insane how much money we are spending on defense, how much money that we're spending on all of these different, nonsensical programs. But at the same time, Doge has not provided the amount of money that they said that they were going to provide. So,
And we
I
didn't get
mean,
our checks. Did you get a check, Jazz? Did you get a Doge check?
no
I
check.
didn't get one. I didn't get my two. We were supposed to get what, $2,000 or something?
I'm waiting on my
Oh,
bird in Panama.
and he said, and here's the best part. He was going to give, this is the funniest dumb thing ever. He was going to give $1,776 to every active service member that was here in the country that's been working hard to take care of us. But instead of actually just giving it to him as like a basically us paying for them extra money, he just allocated the funds from their housing and just shifted it over to their paycheck. So you just move money that was already going to go to them to a different portion of the
And so that way,
2025 is stupid.
not everyone got the payment.
Right. It's a it's
Right.
a it's a dumb way of just moving the money around, to
Well,
be
and the
honest.
tariffs are still being litigated at the Supreme Court level. They haven't decided that tariff case yet, but he's already promised the money to the WIC program, the SNAP program, to farmers. He's going to give the farmers, what was it, 90 billion or something, or 200 billion using the
Hmm.
tariff money. But if the tariffs are found to be unconstitutional, guess what? We got to pay all of that money back. Anybody who paid that tax can come to the US government and say, hey, this was ruled unconstitutional. Give me my money. I want my monies back. And we have to pay them back. We have to pay them back. According to Trump, the money is sitting in a large pot in the Treasury that he dives into every day, like Scrooge McDuck,
Hmm.
and he goes swimming in it. So it's still there, still there waiting, but they're not allowed to spend it because it's being tied up in litigation. Again, if it's ruled unconstitutional, then there's nothing. Then what do we use to bail out the farmers? The farmers who have, who have lost money on exports because they can't sell, they can't, China's not paying the tariffs that the US has demanded. And other countries aren't paying the tariffs that the US demanded. But also, they're going other places for their goods. And then we have goods that we can't sell, and so they're going to waste. Soybean fields wasted. Other produce, strawberries, corn, wasted. Rice. Remember all the rice that the U.S. was using for U.S. aid, and now the rice growers, they have all this rice that they can't do anything with. I mean,
And
we crippled us. According to the experts, this is supposed to be short time pain, just a momentary pain for a greater good. And I don't know when that greater good is coming. When it come? When it come?
Well, what I will say, because I think this is, what we are looking for these different moments in history. I will say the positives of this year have been exuberantly well done, especially for the special elections that happened in 2025. With the special elections, we've gotten a lot of ground that was covered. Arizona's 7th congressional district. Adelita Grijalva was also placed in there as well. You have the Supreme Court justices that were still kept in what state was it? I think it was I think it was Georgia,
Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. There
Yeah.
we go. The Texas House got 3 Democrats here, or we got Christian Menefre in the special election for Texas. We got Zoran Mamdani as the mayor of New York City. Michigan just got their very first female Supreme Court uh, holder. Andre Dickens, Atlanta mayor. We have so many great moments that happened in the special elections. Jacob Frey, Minneapolis mayor. We've got the Maine keeping, I think it was require photo ID restrictions are gone. Maine's prohibit pew pew possession for people courts ruling as a threat. That is now labeled as a threat. Prop 50 in California. These are some of the big elections that have happened in the country, which is great. The proposition in Colorado to fund school meals and SNAP. These are huge things that have happened in the special elections, but we're not done. And if it's all right with you, ladies, I
let
love
me jump
for
in.
us to. Oh, go ahead.
I
Go
want to
ahead.
jump in and add something to some more significant changes with those elections. So Seattle elected what you call like their female version of Zora Mondani. Her name is Katie Wilson. She ousted the Democratic incumbent in Seattle, so that was very major. She leans more on the Democratic Socialist side of the ideology, so that was significant. Also, we had our first black female mayor of Detroit that was elected too in November. Also, there were 3 seats that were flipped from red to blue and on the state level in Mississippi, which broke the supermajority in Mississippi, as well as of 2 days ago or a day ago, an Iowa state Senate seat that was typically red flipped blue, which broke the supermajority in Iowa as well. So those are some other races that you all should look into that kind of tests the temperature of this country right now and the shifts that we see thus far that we may see in November 2026. But go back to you, Finney. I'm sorry. Just wanted
Oh,
to add
yeah.
that.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. There are so many great special elections that happened. Renee Hardman won State Senate District 16. Like these are huge, huge wins for the Democratic side of the politics world. And to be quite honest with you, it brings me good joy to talk about the future of 2026 and how much ground we have to cover, especially when it comes to the law of the land. Ayana, if you'd like to bring up the Supreme Court, I think that jumping into that first before we get into the midterms conversation is going to be a huge topic of conversation.
Listen, the ability to sue anybody for any reason is a hallmark of the United States, right? Petition the government for redress, or if your neighbor's tree fell on your yard and they're refusing to pay you, you can go to the small claims court and sue them and say, hey, get this tree off my property. Being able to sue and get money or get justice, that's what we're all about here. One of the greatest ways people do that is through our appeal system, and that is the SCOTUS. The SCOTUS has been in trouble lately because it seems like they're pretty much on the side of the Trump administration when they're supposed to be an independent body. They're supposed to interpret the law, and lately they've been interpreting it in favor of Donald Trump, which, you know, they are majority. It's a 5-4 majority. Oh, is it 5-4? No, it's 6-3 now, isn't it? Yeah, it's 6-3. Ketanji Brown Jackson, Elena Kagan, and Sotomayor are the three liberal justices on the court. The other 6 are Republicans and very conservative. Let's see if I can name them. Let me see. Alito, Gorsuch, Roberts. Oh gosh, I'm blanking. Gorsuch, Roberts, Thomas. Who's that other guy? Kavanaugh, and there's one more. There's one more. Who's the 6th one? I can't even think. I should know this off the top of my head. In
The
any
Supreme Court.
event.
Yeah, okay.
In any event. Next, this term that they're in now, the 20, she said the lady, Coney Barrett. There we go. Thank you, blessings. You are a blessing. You really are. Their term that they're in now, the 2025 to 2026 term, they've already heard some oral arguments for some cases, but other cases have yet to be heard. So what we're looking at in 2026, probably we're going to have a slew of decisions within the next few weeks. For instance, Childs versus Salazar, which is about free speech and harmful conversion practices. West Virginia versus BPJ, which involves the rights of T students to compete on sports teams. We know that was a big issue. For whatever reason, the Trump administration decided that they wanted to wade into that, and a lot of politicians got into arguments, and you probably got into some arguments, I know I did, online about whether people should be able to use the bathroom if they have to pee. Also, we have Boss versus Illinois State Board of Elections concerning who can challenge laws allowing states to count mail-in ballots. You probably will see some changes to voting laws with the midterms coming up that Mr. Finney is going to talk about later. You're going to see changes to, for instance, my state is looking at changing laws about voting by mail. The governor wants it to be postmarked by a week before the election instead of postmarked on election day. We also have Louisiana versus Calais, which is still yet to be decided, but has already been argued. It's about voting rights and how to address race discrimination in elections. That concerns the gerrymandered map in Louisiana. We're still waiting for that. We've also got Urias Orellana versus Bondi. I love it when Pam Bondi gets sued. The ability of federal courts to overturn an administrative appeal court's determination that asylum applicants do not reasonably fear persecution in their home country. Case versus Montana. That concerns under what circumstances law enforcement officers can enter a person's home without a warrant. Very important, as we see. ICE loves to enter people's homes without warrants, but this is about local law enforcement. We have, again, Learning Resources, Inc. versus Trump is the tariffs case. We're still waiting to hear about that. Trump versus Slaughter is the separation of powers case. We're still waiting to hear about that. And the bipartisan representation in independent federal agencies, that's the case where Trump wanted to fire one of the governors of the Federal Reserve. We're still waiting to hear about that one. And Trump versus Barbara, which is about birthright citizenship. But, however, there's also the shadow docket, which this is rare for any administration to do, but Trump and Vance have been using the shadow docket to litigate a lot of their cases. Trump versus Cook. Noam versus National TPS Alliance is about immigration and temporary protected status. Orr versus Trump is about gender markers on passports for transgender, intersex, and non-binary Americans. We know that the Supreme Court has said, hey, we're going to let this go through until the lower court decides if this is constitutional or not. So for the moment, people have to have on their passport the gender they were assigned at birth. You can't have a T, you can't have female if you were born a male, et cetera, et cetera. Also, religious exemptions from public school vaccine requirements. Another important case. We the Patriots USA versus Ventura Unified School District. Again, vaccines were sorry, am I saying the whole word? Vaxes, the medicines in the needles, a very important story last year as RFK Jr. and his team of mutant scientists decided that they wanted to change the schedule, the vax schedule for newborns. But they also wanted to have some people be able to opt out of receiving, opt out of the vax requirements for schools. You know, if you go to school, you know, before you enter high school, you have to have so many vaxes. Before you enter middle school, before you even get into kindergarten, you have to have so many. And people are saying, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want our kids to receive medicine because we want them to live while they're young and also unalive that way. So also, gosh, Kristi Noem is going to be sued a lot this year, if you wanted to know. And Pam Bondi also. We've got a lot of litigation coming up through the Supreme Court. They've got a lot of cases to hear. Unfortunately, because of all of the executive orders that have been challenged, the Supreme Court has had to work overtime. And the cases that we are waiting to hear from about the most are the ones concerning the citizenship, the birthright citizenship. Look out for that one. And the gerrymandered maps. That's very important as the midterms are coming up. States need to know what maps they're going to use to decide their districts, representation in their districts. Again, watch out in the next few weeks. The Supreme Court is probably going to issue maybe 5 or 6 different decisions. So keep an eye out for that. And over to you, Mr. Finney, or Jazz. Jazz.
Well, I wanted to jump in to ask you regarding, I think this is the Louisiana versus Calais decision regarding the gerrymandering. Now, if the Supreme Court does rule in favor of Louisiana, will that affect other states that are implementing their gerrymandering maps as well? Such as the state that I live in Alabama, will that also affect where they can also challenge the current map that we have?
Well, yeah, they can challenge the current map because, as we know in the Louisiana case, it concerned the creation of a new district that was specifically to re-enfranchise Black voters, right? The one map was created to the point that it disenfranchises, what the people said, it disenfranchised Black voters because they no longer had a majority district, even though they had a sizable population in the state of Louisiana. The people felt that they should at least have one district that's majority Black voters. According to the other side, you can't gerrymander a map to benefit one race of people. It can be for a political party, but not for race. And so the challenge is to whether that district should still remain. And if the state of Louisiana loses, then they lose that district, and then they lose that representative. And then again, Black voters it's essentially diluting the Black vote in Louisiana. And that's what we're trying to prevent. And this is happening in states all over the country where not only is the Black vote being diluted, but the Latino vote is being diluted and the Democrat vote is being diluted. It's gotten to the point now where states like Texas, we saw the gerrymandering case in Texas, and the Supreme Court said, hey, this is perfectly constitutional. This is bipartisan, this partisan gerrymandering is okay, is what I'm trying to say. Partisan gerrymandering to favor a political party is okay. But if it disenfranchises a particular group of people, then it's not okay. And they determined that it didn't disenfranchise a particular group of people, even though the studies and the Black voters and the Latino voters are saying, hey, yes, it does. They said, no, it doesn't. So this map remains. These challenges we saw in Indiana. the Republican legislators were like, hey, we're going to change the map like they did in Texas and like they did in these other states to give more representation to the Republican Party. And they held a vote, and the majority of legislators said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to be like these other states. We're going to leave our map the way that it is. So some states are following. We saw in California, they voted to adopt a new map because seats were lost in Texas, so they're going to make it up in California. Also, Maryland is doing the same thing, and it's created a ripple effect throughout the United States. And we have never before had a president go to these legislators and say, "Hey, can you find seats for me?" But we know Donald Trump is good at asking if people can find things for him. Wink, wink. We know what happened in 2024 when he asked somebody to find something for him and people relented. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I hope for the best, but I know that if 2025 is any indication, then the political landscape is going to be, again, a mess. It's going to be a mess.
All right, what are your thoughts, Penny?
I mean, from what I'm seeing right now, when it comes to the these races, they are fairly tight in a lot of different locations. Some places are almost landslidable on either side, but a lot of these places are also uncontested. There's some of these people that have been in these seats. For example, in District 2 of Idaho, Mr. Michael Simpson has been there since 1999. I know that we just talked to one of the representatives that's running for District 1 of Indiana. If she wins that specific race, that can get you a couple more points here in obviously the seedings that we need. From what they're kind of showing as a potential option, it seems to be kind of bottlenose at the moment, kind of neck and neck when it comes to these races. But a lot of these locations do definitely show some good chances of opportunities for the Democrats to win. Some places like in districts of Texas, they've got 3.9% of a win to the Democrats. Ohio 2.1, Michigan 1.6, Georgia 1.2, Iowa, South Dakota, New Hampshire. These are possible places that we can get some good members in the House to actually be part of the Democratic side. The Senate is a little bit more back and forth. From what I've seen, the Senate is a little bit more leaning towards the right. But if we get a couple more seats in the Senate, that can stop them from doing any sort of filibustering or any sort of destruction with that kind of filibuster situation here. North Carolina is leaning a little bit more to the Democrats, while Texas is still leaning, of course, to the right, to Republicans. But that doesn't mean that we still couldn't get a couple of good seats there. Maine, Minnesota, New Hampshire, Georgia. A lot of these races are showing some really good positive numbers. Ossoff is looking to win at 79%, while Mills is at 60 in Maine. Minnesota is 82% with Flanagan. North Carolina, it has Cooper at 75. But we do have some good opportunities here. My question to the chat really quickly here. If we can can I make a poll on this thing? Let me see if I can. I might be able to. Hold on one second, because I want to see if we can do some fun little polling here.
While you do that, we can remind the people that all of the seats in the House of Representatives and the U.S. House of Representatives are open. They're all
Every
open
single
now.
one.
Every seat plus 30 Senate seats are being challenged during this midterm election, which means that the primaries are very important, very, very, very important, but the general election is also very important. So that's 435 seats in the House of Representatives. There are some representatives who have been serving, like Finney said, since the 90s. We talked to someone who's running against a candidate who's been in their seat since 1993. That's a long time. A long time. And you can't imagine that things have gotten better for that district in the last, I would say, 10 or 20 years. At some point, there has to be some turnover. There has to be turnover. There has to be progress, in my opinion. That is just my opinion. If people want to vote for this person who's been there since 1993, that's your business. That is your business. If you want to send the same people back to Congress because you think they're doing a good job, again, that is up to you. Totally up to you. But all of these seats are open. The primaries are free. The general election is free. I don't know why you wouldn't show up to vote, but go ahead, Mr. Finney.
Yes, I'm making it right now.
I
Um,
also want to add, could I add this really quick? So, also, when it comes to the U.S. Senate seats for Ohio and Florida, those were vacant due to J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, which led the governor to appoint people in those positions to fill out the remaining terms. Um, Remember, those seats were not elected seats. So, get out the vote in Ohio and Florida if you would like to flip that seat to the other side. And it will be held on the same day, which is November 3rd, 2026. So,
Yes.
Absolutely. And you'll see up at the top left-hand corner that polls out is saying who is going to win the midterms, whether it's Democrats, Republicans, depending on how the kind of vote process looks on here. I think it's going to, show up like what the voter base that we have right now is kind of leaning more towards. But I think that when it comes to the House specifically, with all of these seats up for grabs, I would say after everything that has been going on. And after the effects of what happens with the BBB, and even with some of the tariff policies, I think that it would lean more towards to the Democratic side, especially when it comes to what's happening with this JE situation, with the lack of the files not being fully put out there. I know that was one of the topics that we were talking about, like looking into, but it's a very fresh thing that is still updating right now. That we were thinking, you know what, we'll wait until the next couple of months to see if they actually put the rest of it out. But with that happening, with the BBB, with the issues with the inflation, when it comes to issues with the economy, that the economy itself is actually the biggest driving force right now when it comes to who is going to be put into the House and into the Senate. So if these tariffs start to do exactly what tariffs do, we're going to see a huge swing towards the left side of the aisle. And um, I think that when it comes to like Zohran Mamdani as mayor, I think that he's going to do a really good job. And if we start to see positivity as him as mayor, it's also going to really help with the Democrats. So voting is right up there. We got 3 minutes left on it. If you ladies want to bring in anything to the midterm elections as someone to kind of look out for, definitely let me know. As someone who's from Michigan, I think that. Oh, sorry.
gubernatorial races too. Yeah,
Yeah.
39. Yeah, 39 gubernatorial races are up for 2026.
Yep.
39. Woo!
39.
Yay! Listen,
In
y'all, this
yeah.
entire country could be flipped right side up. Right now we're in the upside down. If you watch Stranger Things like I do, then you understand that reference.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we could. I'm not here to get you to vote for a particular side, but there's a lot of suffering being caused by a particular political ideology that a lot of us did not vote for, but were subjected to. And we want to turn that around. We want to turn that beat around. We do. Because a lot of things have been implemented that have changed people's lives for the worse. I don't see any reason why farmers should be suffering at this particular time when it's needless. A lot of the suffering being imposed on people is needless. The ACA subsidies expiring could have been prevented. Medicare, Medicaid cuts could have been prevented. All of these things were implemented on purpose. You have to ask yourself why someone would implement this on purpose when it helps people, when we know that we have issues with affordable healthcare in the United States, when we know that we have issues with food insecurity in the United States, with natural disasters. Why would someone purposely cut programs, cut spending in programs that are helping, number one, not just their base, but the majority of Americans? For instance, Medicaid is responsible for nearly half of the births in the United States. So an agency that's paying for nearly half of the births in the United States is being cut. People are being cut from it. What do you think happens when there are women who are pregnant who can't afford prenatal care, or they can't afford for their children to see a pediatrician? What do you think happens in those cases? Maybe they have complications. Maybe they have illnesses that could be prevented. I mean, these are things we need to think about. We need to think about the fact that there are hospitals closing in rural areas where a lot of Americans live, right? A lot of Republican voters live in rural areas. Why would you purposely cut the legs off from the people who are voting for you? And what are the people who vote for these politicians who make these changes going to do about it?
And implementing the new requirements for work hours for Medicaid recipients also.
Right. What if you live in an area where there are no
Right.
jobs? What are you going to do? You're a
Exactly.
veteran and you're on SNAP and you have to get a job, but there are no jobs where you live.
Exactly. And when it comes to these different races, why they're so important, having governors positions being completely up for grabs. You've got Tony Evers in Wisconsin. He's not going to seek another term. Gretchen Whitmer is term limited, just like Brian Kemp is term limited. You also have people trying to run in, like Katie Hobbs trying to run in Nevada, which is Trump supporting state. You've got someone trying to succeed Gavin Newsom, and Ron DeSantis. They're both term limited. So to see like where the trajectory goes in the gubernatorial races is going to be massive, especially like you said, when it comes to the states that are needing assistance with health and with hospitals being closed down. Like we're just going to have to see who really wants their legs chopped off, metaphorically speaking.
Not
Um,
me. No.
Right, right. But also speaking of health and these hospital issues, um, Jazz, I think jumping into the BBB and the futures that holds is going to be a huge thing to talk about right now. I think it's a huge, important
Absolutely.
leg up.
Absolutely. So a lot of people know it as the BBB. Um, some people call it Big Beautiful Bill. I won't call it that, but just for the sake of the argument, we're going to talk about the BBB. So there's some things that have been passed on the legislative portion of this, but there are a lot of fine print things that a lot of people don't know that will take effect this year. As we said before, the Medicaid requirements are going to be roughly 80 hours per month for able-bodied individuals who benefit from Medicaid. Also, when it comes to the BBB, there will also be effects when it comes to SNAP benefits. Some states are already implementing things when it comes to allowing certain types of sweet, sugary items to be allowed or not allowed. You will be seeing that depending on the state that you're in. Also, when it comes to SNAP, they're also changing the work requirements for individuals from the ages from 14 to 18. Prior, it stopped at the age of 18 to allow to include the work requirements. Now they lessen the age down to 14. So you will be seeing that in some states as well. Also, you will be seeing, depending on the state, whether it's more Republican leaning or Democratic leaning. More importantly, the Republican leaning, they're so-called cracking down, saying that this will cut the cost for their states. So, tell me, Penny and Ayana, what are your thoughts about the new SNAP requirements and also the Medicaid requirements under this bill, and also states implementing their policies regarding this as well?
Can I say, I don't think I can say what I really want to say. I think it's ass. Can I say that? I think it's ass.
He thinks it's cheeks,
I think it's cheeks. I think it's
cheeks.
cheeks. I mean, okay. I know people who use SNAP, right? People in my family, my friends. It's already enough that these people are working at least two jobs, right? My friend is working two jobs and she still receives SNAP. And the fact that they're changing what you can buy, how much you can receive. It's not like these people are receiving thousands of dollars. There are some people who get $20, people who get $100, right? And they need way more than that. If you live in an area where there's food insecurity, and that's a lot of places in the United States, in rural areas, in metropolitan areas, you have to rely on maybe going to a corner store, a bodega, or a gas station store. And they don't sell vegetables at gas station stores. They don't sell, bananas and whatever. They might be cooking fried chicken. You can't buy heated food with SNAP. You can't buy a bag of chips. You can't get a soda. So when you go there to get something, you could probably get a pack of bologna, some bread, and a bottle of water. And I mean, I don't dig in poor people's pockets because I don't want somebody digging in mine. And I don't want to nickel and dime poor people because they really, the resources they have are very limited. And for us to tout ourselves as being a wealthy country where resources are for everybody, anybody can do anything, anybody can be anything. Okay, well, that takes money, that takes education, that takes resources. So you're telling me that you're not going to spend that on the people who are among the least of us, I will say, the people who are the poorest, the people who are food insecure. You're not going to spend more money on them. You're going to take more money and then force them to do more of what they're already doing to earn the little bit of money that you're giving them. It's sick to me. It's sick. I think it's sick.
And I personally think that with states, though, saying like, hey, we're still going to fund SNAP benefits, we're still going to provide money for meals like Colorado, I think it's a really great thing. I think it's wonderful that the state can see like, hey, these are the people that are in need, and we're going to do our absolute best to make sure that they're taken care of. One of the problems, though, is removing the rights of individuals to be like, hey, listen, maybe for the SNAP benefits, if my kid wants a cupcake or something, or just something minuscule as a snack, as a celebratory thing, when they're trying to make ends meet, I don't see why that's a problem. The fact that they're trying to limit what you can eat is basically removing the right as an American to be like, listen, this is when I want to feed my child. This is when I want to be able to provide for my kids. Like that shows blatantly that they don't care about your rights to do those kind of things, you know? Especially when you're just looking to try and make something special for, family members, or trying to make something, feel less like a drag. We shouldn't be just giving out bread, chicken, and vegetables as the thing for SNAP benefits. We should be able to give the opportunities that they rightfully deserve because they're trying to get themselves out of a terrible situation. And in fact, if you don't want this to be the case, fine. How about you try and allocate the money that you're using for the for the ships that are on the coast of Venezuela? How about you start taking the funding from specific places like the military and other programs that we don't necessarily need to be using, and focus more on our actual defense and focus on our health more, and stop giving out money to these different countries that are basically destroying our our way of life, and destroying people's lives, and destroying people's ability to survive and thrive. Why are we giving tens or hundreds of billions of dollars to countries that we all as Americans don't necessarily support, or actually, or countries that don't support us? Um, Obviously, that's going to a specific country, but I don't want to get too bogged down into the weeds of it. But the point is that we have better ways to fund these individuals, and the fact that we're arguing about their SNAP benefits is absolutely ridiculous.
Just to add a little bit more to certain states that will take their restrictions into effect. So as of today, Iowa, Indiana, Nebraska, Utah, and West Virginia will implement their SNAP restrictions on food. Louisiana will have their ban take effect in February 18th, and April 2026. Florida has their own ban implementation, which will include ultra processed packaging, desserts like snack cakes, cookies. And also, Iowa is considered to be the most strictest out of all their SNAP restriction food bans, which entails it will include items that are subject to state sales tax. And to Ayana's point, such as rotisserie chicken or a salad with a dressing packet inside, will no longer be SNAP eligible. So, what are your thoughts about that?
That is crazy. That's crazy. What do you mean I can't get a salad with a salad? What? What?
Especially when they're so focused on trying to make sure that they're eating healthier, in order to bring down, the amount of weight that you have to look at your calorie intake. And salads help with diminishing hunger and help diminish with calorie intake. But of course, they don't care. They don't care. It's because they see it as waste, fraud, and abuse, and they want to get rid of it, and they just don't care about poor people at the end
And
of the
look,
day.
and the United States has experienced a decline in obesity, but not because people are eating healthier. It's because people are eating less food, right? It's because more people are taking GLP-1s, and so they're eating less and they're losing weight. So you're not going to help people by telling them what they can eat. People will find a way. I know. I grew up, kind of like that. People find a way. You're not doing them any favors by saying, here, the money that I give you can only be spent on, you can get a thinly sliced turkey and some wheat bread. This is taking it back to the days where they had the food pantries where you could go and get the government cheese and the government box of powdered milk. That's what they're trying to take it back to. That to me is it's sick. That is a sick thing to do. If you give me $100, I give a poor person $100. I don't also have the right to tell them, hey, now you don't go and spend that $100 on shoes or a bottle of perfume or no. I gave you the money. You do whatever the hell you want to do with it. That's $100 more than you had before that you probably had no other way of getting. It's the same with housing though, right? Public housing. We'll give you money for housing, but then you can only live in these projects over here. You can only live in this housing settlement over here. You can't go live wherever you want. It's bizarre. It's bizarre behavior to me to tell somebody who is already at their lowest point exactly what they can do and how they can live, what they can eat. We're talking about voters and politicians, Republican voters and politicians who are for small government. They're always talking about small government, small government. This is big government. Telling people what they can't eat. That's big government. Government
And
telling you what you can and can't eat or what you can and cannot buy. That's big government.
and Anthony makes a great point too, because if we're talking about the numbers, right? The price of having 3 frigates outside of Venezuela a day is $40 million. Now, of course, that seems like chump change to small people, but if you just take 40 million, right? I'm just going to pull up this calculator and I'm just going to times it by 30. Okay. That is going to be $1.2 billion a month to have just the frigates out there every single month. Okay. Now, of course, it doesn't necessarily do a dent when it comes to the SNAP benefits, but the fact that you're taking money away from SNAP benefits to allocate for funding for these frigates to be out here to potentially cause a war with a country that we are not even involved with when it comes to this situation, it just shows blatantly that they don't want you to survive or thrive here in the United States. They just want to use you for your labor, use you for your benefits and your money, and so they can use that to gain more resources from other countries that they're more than welcome to destabilize. It's all disgusting.
And that kind of rolls into talking about some of the things that are also going to affect people, which is the ACA subsidies. As everybody know, that Congress will be back in session in a couple of days if they're not already in session. And we also know that the Obamacare plan premium tax credit subsidy did expire December 31st, which was a couple of days ago, which was yesterday actually. So a lot of people who've already been trying to get ahead of the program of signing up for their health insurance plans back in November, December, saw a significant increase in their premiums, which it was either $400 more, some people seeing $1,000 more, depending on how many children they had or how many, just dependents in their household in general. So now we see that there is a possibility that one of the Congress people will force a vote to get everyone on record on whether or not they're going to vote yes or no on extending the expansion of, extending the time of the premium tax credits. So, for example, with an extension, the average annual premiums could jump between $880 to $1,900. That is a major jump in 2016. So we'll see how this will play out. But I think it is a good idea that certain Congress people have jumped on board to force a vote, because this is ultimately going to affect millions of people who are into who participate in the ACA. So tell me, what are your thoughts about that thus far?
Well, if they're also telling people they're spreading propaganda about the ACA again, saying, it's Obamacare, it's expensive, it's stupid, it's silly, it doesn't make any sense. Then people, if you listen to the propaganda, then you're not going to be convinced that this was good for you anyway. You're going to go, oh, well, this was, a pipe dream anyway. So why should I be fighting to save something that is costing the government? That's what they're being told, that Obamacare is costing the government. So maybe I should try to find something else. There is nothing else. There's nothing else. It's one thing if you take this out from under people who need it and you slip something else in there, but it's one thing to take out the safety net altogether and then don't provide them with anything, right? So in the meantime, while people are listening to the propaganda and they're believing it, over here, they're racking up major medical debt because, again, one of the changes that Donald Trump made when he became president was to get rid of the rule that hospitals, medical providers could not report to the credit bureaus when someone had medical debt. That was something that the Biden administration implemented. That was one of the credit rule changes. Now, you've got thousands of dollars you can't pay because maybe you're making $30,000, $20,000 a year, and that is going to be reported on your credit report. What's going to happen to your credit? It's going to tank. It's going to tank. And you're already, and hey, maybe you don't care because maybe you're not trying to buy a house, you're not trying to buy a car, you're not trying to go to school. So maybe you don't care if you have a 100 credit score. But when a credit score is there's so much importance placed on a credit score in the United States, it ultimately does matter. And so when you're not providing people with the opportunity, something somewhere has to be affordable. There has to be something that we can afford, something that makes sense, something that helps people instead of punishes them because the government wants to, as Mr. Finney pointed out, spend more money on having these boats out in Venezuela or dropping spicy boom booms in Nigeria or Syria or Iran or wherever, and people are saying small government, we don't want more wars, we don't want more of that, and that's what they're seeing. At what point do people look at this and go, hey, I'm being lied to? I'm being lied to, and I'm being disenfranchised. I'm being bankrupted. There's being money taken out of my children's food taken out of my children's mouths. At what point does it occur to people that this is against them and not for them? Is my problem, is that people are not seeing that this is against them and not for them. These moves are not being made for us. They're being used against us.
Now,
Yeah, and even to
oh, I'm
oh,
sorry.
sorry. Oh, yeah, and even to go with that as well, you have people that were massive Trump loyalists and Trump supporters that are even arguing over what insanity it is to basically take away the ACA credits without a ramp off. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene is a perfect example of that, where she says, "You are going to take this away from my constituencies, but you don't even have a plan to enact at the beginning of the year to help alleviate this situation. So instead of providing help for my people, you're literally putting majority of my people in the gutter, so to speak. So you're starting to see the cracks in the pavement when it comes to the MAGA supporters and these conservatives that were loyalists because of this specific situation with BBB, with the SNAP benefits and the ACA credits, with the JE situation. There's just so much that is happening right now. But what also doesn't help is that you're also seeing people being very willing to basically vote in for the triple B and not care about their constituencies. That's actually what happened in the House with the Alaskan member of the House, where she said, "You know what? I think that it's going to be taken down in the Senate," not knowing that the Senate's going to push this through heavily because they have Mike Johnson there. So it just, or not Johnson, but basically it's going to be pushed through like crazy. And for her to basically throw in her vote and say, "I'm voting for this, even though I don't agree with it," just shows that she is trapped mentally.
And one of the things we talked about earlier, Jazz, remember we talked about the student loan forgiveness changes, about how
Yes.
the BBB took away one of the key forgiveness parameters,
Yes.
I guess you could call it. One of the perks of loan forgiveness was that that wasn't taxable as income. You could get $200,000 in loans forgiven and never think about it again. It wasn't taxable income. Now, the BBB allowed that provision of student loan forgiveness to expire. So if you were in an income driven repayment plan, for instance, and you ended up getting $160,000, which is entirely possible, forgiven, that becomes taxable income in 2026. That changes your tax rate. If you were making $40,000 a year and suddenly you got an explosion of $160,000, you've made $200,000 in 2026. And so when in 2027, you're having to pay taxes on $200,000 in income as opposed to $40,000 in income. So now we're telling people, hey, we're not really going to be doing forgiveness, but if you happen to get forgiven, we're going to tax that as income. Again, bankrupting people. You might end up having to pay $12,000 in tax. Who has that?
Not
And
many people do.
if it changes your tax bracket, that means you're not entitled to certain tax breaks either. So the tax breaks you were getting for child income tax credit and the student loan interest deduction or mortgage interest deduction, you're not going to get it. So you're going to be owing more money. I don't know who is voting to owe more money. This is what we're seeing. We're seeing people voting to owe more, to have more money taken out of their pockets. It's nonsensical.
That kind of goes into, we heard about the news that the administration reduced the nursing degrees to be professional degrees, and that also coincides to how they borrow money for student loans on the government sector, and it opens up more predatory lending on the private sector. Tell me what your thoughts about that as well.
Um
Sounds more like your field than mine. I'm more the
Listen,
foreign policy dude.
listen. They did this. Number one, they reduced the amount of money that people can borrow for graduate school, right? So now I think it's something like $60,000 you can borrow for graduate school, when we know that some graduate schools cost $200,000. If you want to be a dentist, you're paying over $200,000 to become a dentist. You want to be a doctor, you're paying well over $200,000 to become a doctor. So if they downgrade these professional degrees, you don't get professional degree loan money, right? So you have to go to a private lender, and private lenders don't have the same forgiveness and forbearance rules as government lending does. They don't have the same deferment rules as government lending does. The government essentially wants to get out of the business of loaning money to people to go to school. According to Republicans, they don't want to be involved in that business anymore at all. And so they've also cut down on the amount of money people can borrow for undergraduate loans. I think it's something like $5,500 a year you can borrow now, which is going to kill me. I mean, it's going to hurt me. I have one kid in school who's coming out of school, and then I have another who's going into college. And the expense of higher education is ridiculous, right? Some undergraduate programs are $90,000. For what? For what? And if you're SAI, like that's how much the FAFSA determines you can pay is 60,000. They're saying you can pay 60,000 of that, and maybe you'll get 30,000 in aid. But a lot of people can't even pay the 60,000. I can't pay $60,000 a year for my kid to go to school. That's insanity. Nobody has addressed how much higher education costs. No one has addressed that. They're only addressing the fact that the government doesn't want to be in the business of helping people to go to school. And that's all they're doing. They're helping people. They're not paying for it, mind you. They're just helping people. The government does not want to be in the business of helping people. And there are a lot of people who agree with that. They agree the government shouldn't help people get food or health care or health insurance or prescription medication or money for school. They shouldn't be helping people get money when they've been discriminated against. They shouldn't help people who get sick from working in the mines. They shouldn't help anybody. It should just be small government, small government, small government. No, you're paying taxes. We're paying taxes. Some people pay hundreds of thousands in taxes so that it can go to these programs to help people. That's what the government does. If it's of the people, for the people, by the people, then that's where the money goes, to the people. Why are you mad that the money is going to help the people who are supporting the system that supports them? If I put money into the bank, when I go to the bank and I need some money, hello, give me some money. It shouldn't be, well, no, sorry, you gave that to us. It's ours now. No, that's not how it works.
That also leads to now people are getting notices in the mail that their wage will be garnished because of student loan repayments have resumed. So just for just to lay out some facts here, it says that the first 1,000 notices are expected to go out the first week of January for borrowers, which is more than who have been about 270 days late on their loans. They expect to be held up to about a 15% of their pay. So what are your thoughts about that? That the government is subject to garnish about 15% of your pay if you're more than 270 days late on your student loan repayments?
If they had favorable repayment terms, that would be one thing. But they're coming to people saying, hey, you owe us thousands and thousands and thousands of just interest, not even the principal. It's the interest payments that's crushing people, really. Interest payments on loans are just insane. They're insane. If it was just the principal, I believe a lot of people could make those payments, right? But they're being asked to make payments on the interest and the principal, and some of these payments are $1,000 a month. $1,000 or $2,000 already, when the cost of housing has gone up significantly since C-19. If you're seeing a rise in rent and you're seeing a rise in your healthcare insurance premium, and now your wages are going to be garnished because you are late on payments, but you've been in the SAVE program, right? You've been in the SAVE program, and the federal government has decided, hey, we don't want to do the SAVE program anymore. So now we're going to backdate this to when we decided we didn't want to do this anymore. And now you're 270 days late. Now you're 300 days late. You're a year late, and we're going to garnish your wages 15%. When you need every single one of those pennies to pay for housing and food and healthcare, people are going to start to sacrifice, right? People are going to sacrifice something. And the first thing to go, I promise you, the first thing to always go is health insurance. Always. People will sacrifice health insurance and forego going to the doctor before anything else. People will suffer with a medical condition before they will sacrifice housing and food. And that is not a choice that Americans should have to make in 2026. It is not a choice. That sounds like a 1920 choice. That doesn't sound like a 2026 choice.
And I'm going to pose this to both you and Finney. Ayana, do you think this, in this era that we're in, is this considered to be like the squeeze effect?
Oh my God.
Because people are getting squeezed from everywhere, whether it's childcare costs, food costs, healthcare costs, just insurance in general, just for your automobile, home. So tell me your thoughts.
Well, I mean, I could ask you the same thing, Jess. You have a little one. You have two little ones. My kids are all, my daughter's almost 18. My son's 21. If I could have another baby, I absolutely would not do it. It's so expensive. Childcare, clothing, shoes, transportation. What do you do with them during the summertime? Summer camp for me was out of the question. It was so freaking expensive.
Car payment now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the car payment. Yeah, the interest rates on car loans has gone up. Even with the Fed cutting the interest rates by, I think, what was it, a quarter of a point or a half a point or something, didn't do anything for interest rates. The interest rates did not come down. Interest rates on home loans has gone up. The cost of owning a home has gone up. Property taxes have increased recently, especially in my state, which uses property taxes to pay for public schools. And now they're exploring getting rid of property taxes. Okay, well, what are you going to replace it with? If you're using that primarily to prop up public schools, what are you replacing it with? We're going to have to pay for this somehow. It's going to be passed off into, I don't know, sales taxes maybe. And the sales taxes are going to go up. They're not going to not get that money. One of the reasons why Ohio voted to have casinos in the state was because we needed more revenue in the state. Why is it that we have all of these casinos now, but we're still hurting for money? We're still hurting for money. We're still being squeezed. Like you said, we're still being squeezed. What will be the final answer? What is it? What is the one thing that's finally going to say, we don't have to be squeezed anymore? I don't know. I think our defense spending is out of control, absolutely out of control. And Donald Trump and his administration has only made it worse. If we can cut down on defense spending, for the love of God, please. We need money from somewhere else. The taxpayers are paying enough. We're still not taxing corporations at a fair amount. When you look at it, concretely, they pay their fair share. But when you look at it from a more broader scope, they absolutely do not. They don't. And they're always looking for some politician to get into power, a president, a representative, a senator, who they can lobby, who they can kind of manipulate to pass favorable legislation that says, hey, we're going to give a tax break to this corporation if they build this in this certain area, or if they have this certain number of employees, or if they hire this certain number of people. We're going to give them a tax break if they expand, or if they get rid of these certain rules. Or they're always looking for tax breaks. They're always looking for ways to deregulate, to make the cost of doing business in the United States cheaper, right? We saw that in Louisiana. Businesses are being sued for polluting the air. So what did they do? They lobbied the state government to make it harder for people to sue over the effects of air pollution. So now, automatically less expensive to do business in the state of Louisiana. I don't know. Benny, you can jump in here. I know I'm talking a lot.
No, you're good. Honestly, you're absolutely right on all of those things. And like also the biggest problem too with separating our powers with our allies. These crazy tariffs that are just are expelling our allies to other countries, cutting us out of the market, putting tariffs on Canada with lumber, putting giving $80 billion to Argentina and thinking that we were gonna see some sort of response from that, some sort of profit from that. What do? They turn right around and they let China basically be their buddies, and it's seeing the tariffs go to countries that we're already friends with England, with other locations like this. Like I don't see the benefits that we are receiving when it comes to these tariffs. And the fact that they were saying, hey, listen, we're going to deem this illegal because you're going against the legislative powers. I mean, congratulations for a positive in that, but then they're still letting them get away with some of these different laws that he's doing on the books with uh, immigration, with the National Guard. Like, there's so many things that we are wasting our money on when putting the National Guard into places that we don't even need to. That costs money. By having them go to California to take care of these ICE raids, that costs money. ICE doing what they're doing, that costs money. And to think that that conservatives don't see this is laughable to me. And honestly, it sounds cynical to say that when these credits come, or when this BBB stuff comes into place and people start to lose their SNAP benefits, when people start to lose their income taxes, when people start to lose the opportunity to feed themselves, it sounds cynical, but I want it to happen. And it's so bad to say that because it's like, this is what you voted for. We've been telling you this is a problem. You guys need to not vote for this, and you vote for it anyways. This is just to show you that you Republicans and you conservatives that wanted this to happen, well, here you go. Hopefully you vote correctly in the midterms, because once you feel it for just 1 year, once you start to feel the stuff for one single year, hopefully now you start to open your eyes and see what the problem is. You know, not going to cleaner energy and continuously doing fracking, putting oil rigs out into the coastlines, taking oil rigs from Venezuela, literally doing an Iraq 2.0. You don't see this as a problem. We spent how much in trillions of dollars over that nonsense since in 2000, in the early 2000s? You don't think that the housing market crisis is going to happen again when we're letting these companies basically buy up neighborhoods and then resell them to you and see if that's going to be a positive? No. No, this is something that unfortunately I don't want them to experience, but they have to experience it at this point. There's no other option. There's no choice but for them to feel the pain that other people that are in that wheelhouse start to feel. And that's just my cynical opinion on it.
All right. So we pretty much tackled a lot today. Anybody in the chat feels like they want to come up here and add something to the conversation, feel free to do so. You can request up and we can hear your thoughts. But thank you all for being here this far. It has been a great conversation. And all those who came by and just showed some love to us, we appreciate you all. Just be on the lookout for more content to come. We do have some upcoming town halls and roundtable discussions with candidates, so be on the lookout for that. Finney and Ayana, anything else we need to cover before we wrap it up?
No, not for me.
No,
I think we covered everything that we needed to.
Oh, we gotta announce. We're OVC. We're doing our next town hall on. When's our next town hall?
It's the 6th, I think, January.
Okay. January the 6th. But we're having a candidate roundtable this Sunday.
It's the 4th. Yes, this Sunday, January 4th is the next roundtable. So we will have the roundtable first. That will be at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let's go ahead and I'll make the graphic a little bigger. If one of the moderators can expand it, that'll help. I'm not able to expand the graphic for OVC. But yes, we will have a roundtable coming up this coming Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be on the lookout for that. We will have a collective of candidates up here having a discussion. As we are up here in these boxes, there will be more of them. And just be on the lookout for that conversation. And our next town hall for 2026 will be January 6th, I think.
January 6th.
Yes. So that, be on the lookout for that as well. That will be with candidate Joy Hoover. She is running for Nevada's 1st congressional district. I'm sorry, let me back up. It's John Kipper first. He's running for governor of New Hampshire. That will be January 6th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then following that, on that doubleheader of that same day, we will have Joy Hoover, who's running for Nevada 1st congressional district, and that will be at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So.
And hey, you all, we've been doing these TikTok live town halls for a while now. You've been seeing a lot of candidates from state races to national races. 2026 is a big deal. It's a big deal. That's why we're doing this. When we say our vote counts and your vote counts, that's not just hyperbole. It actually counts, especially in the primaries, which start in, I believe, March. The first one is in March, but early voting starts in like late February in some states. That primary where you're choosing between, the best out of 10 candidates or 2 candidates, that's where it starts. That's where it starts. So if you're not registered to vote, or if you don't know if you're registered to vote, please check your registration. Make sure everything is intact. If you're going to be voting by mail, check your state's vote by mail and absentee and vote early laws. Make sure that you have a plan for voting day. Don't skip the primaries. Do not skip the primaries. Please do not skip the primaries. Some of them are pretty late, like August. I think Florida is in August, but don't skip it. Don't go, well, this person has always won. They're probably going to win again. So what's the point? The point is that you are using your voice to say who you want in office. Even if that person does not win, You have used your voice to say, this is who I want in office. And if people aren't hearing from you, at some point, people start to think that the citizenry doesn't care. And that's when they start to make all these changes because they think that the voting doesn't matter. So they can make all these changes about ballots and voting early and voting, postage stamp and all this craziness and gerrymandered maps because they think the voters are disengaged and don't care. We need to show them that we do care, that we are paying attention, and that we understand that our vote counts. Absolutely 100%. So get to the primaries, and then on election day, get your butt into the polls and vote. There are 435 seats in the House of Representatives, 30 Senate seats. There's a very important Senate race in my state of Ohio. There are these gubernatorials, there's city council, there's, commissioners, there's all this stuff. Do not sit this one out just because it's a non-presidential year. Do not sit this out. That is my spiel. Get out there and vote. I'm kidding. I kid.
All right. So, if there's anything else that we need to talk about or announce before we close out, unless we don't have anything else, I'll pass it back to you, either Ayana or Finney, if you want to say anything before we say our closing mantras for OVC.
Yeah. Ayana's very much correct. Vote, vote, vote. If you don't know what your district is when it comes to Senate or for your House, for the Congress, please do look it up. You're more than welcome to find that information. It's very easy to find online. Just type in your address or your city or your zip code and just put in House District member, and then you'll be able to find it. For example, mine is Daniel Soto. He's a great Democrat. Definitely somebody that I would recommend if you were in my area, of course, of the aisle. But of course, that is completely up to you if you're part of that location. My recommendation for everybody, like as she said, vote, 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 vote. Anybody that you support, please do vote for them. Your vote really does matter. It's the most important thing that you have when you are a citizen of the United States. If you think that your vote does not matter, you are very, 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 very misinformed on what is happening politically. Look, all of these seats is such a very important race. Every single seat in the House, you have the ability to flip this House from red to blue, immensely so. So find your district, get out and vote. Make sure you find out the times. Tell your people. Tell everybody that you know that doesn't really care to make sure that they start to care, because the future of this country rests in our hands. Period. And also, Vance also is running for the Democratic ticket in New York District 8. Okay, if you're following OVC, look at who we're following and who's following us. We do have a lot of members of Congress and or people that are running for these different seats and even running for the Senate that want your eyes on them. We need to start making sure that we show them. So we want you to see them too.
All right. I'll take it to you, Ayana, to go ahead and close it out.
All right, this has been Our Vote Counts, very special political replay of 2025 and preview of what's to come in 2026. We thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you to Jazz and Mr. Finney and his tank top and the audience for your participation and for the gifts for supporting OVC. Your support last year meant a lot to us. That's why we're still here and we're still doing this very important work. We appreciate you. We hope you will continue to join us throughout the rest of the year for town halls and for political roundtables, and keep these discussions going. Again, we are OVC, Our Vote Counts, a nonpartisan movement uniting Americans from all walks of life to empower voters, support candidates of integrity, and ensure every voice is heard through education, outreach, accountability, and action. We are building a stronger democracy, one informed vote at a time. Again, thank you for joining us. Remember, your vote counts. Your vote is your power. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon, good evening, whatever the case.
Yeah.
Happy New Year. Happy New New Year.